forward to retake Chai Li. So we decided to pull all units back from the day's advanced positions. We lost 6 fine men that day, with another 23 and 2 officers wounded, and 2 military medals awarded for heroism. Brigadier John M. Rockingham.
Captured communist documents, which dealt with tactics, were objective and factual. One such report, Experiences Gained in 3 Battles Since Entering Korea, explained how the Chinese were frequently able to overcome the UN's advantage in modern weapons, in this case, artillery.
Before entering into combat, we should try to locate the enemy artillery. Light special units should be formed. These special units are to break through the enemy lines at night until they reach the enemy artillery by stealth. These units should be trained to act quickly, silently, bravely, and to fight fiercely. They should not reply to enemy fire, because at night both observation and communications are difficult, and it is not easy to distinguish between friend and foe. By advancing quickly without regard for casualties, the specialized team can accomplish its mission to reach and destroy the enemy artillery.
The Canadians too watched, listened, and learned, and issued the following advisory.
It has been learned since early on that once the Chinese go south of Pyongyang, their supply lines can only support a 3-day offensive before running out of essential supplies. It then behooves us to roll with the punch to effect short fighting retreats until Chinese supplies run out, then advance back into the areas they have abandoned.
Private Douglas Wesley Carley from D Company of the 2nd Battalion Royal Canadian Regiment participated in a fighting patrol near a hill called 166. They were to move into a valley in darkness, make contact with the enemy, and bring back a couple of prisoners for interrogation.
25 of us moved out. We'd been briefed on where the minefields were, but even then you had to be careful. My radio, 40 pounds with the extra battery, was strapped on my back. We moved into the valley in single file, along the dikes that separated the rice paddies, moving slowly, gingerly, picking our way along. We were no more than 20 yards from them when they opened up on us. I couldn't see the Chinese, but the flashes of their machine guns were awful close. My mouth was dry as if I'd been chewing cotton. My hands were cold and clammy, and the bullets were all around us. All I could see was blue flame, feet up in the air, arms all over the place, just like rag dolls. We all hit the dirt, and the sergeant sent the getaway man, the last man on the patrol, for help. He got only a few yards when he was hit. My short radio antenna was shot off, so were the epaulets on my uniform. Then the sergeant ordered us to get the hell out of there. Everybody scrambled back through the filthy, frigid rice paddies, heading for the riverbank. I fell way behind with the load of my radio, alone with the stuttering of Chinese guns, wallowing around in the muck. I kept saying to myself, oh, Christ, why me? Why me? Why me? I don't know whether you'd call it praying or not, but I was damn scared. The others were getting further and further ahead of me, and I sure felt like getting rid of that damn radio. It was so heavy. But somehow I caught up. As soon as I had company, I dried out the handset, pushed up the long antenna that hadn't been damaged, and we called for artillery support, all the while exposed to a hail of enemy fire.
Doug Carley's citation for his military medal reads,
His coolness under heavy fire was a very steadying example to the remainder of the patrol. His conduct was an example to all signalers in general, and to the men in particular.
In an action that rivaled Kapyong for courage and endurance, the Vandus, led by Lieutenant Colonel Dexter, stopped the Chinese in a desperate battle for Hill 355, known as Little Gibraltar.
On November 21, 1951, American Thanksgiving Day, Colonel Dexter called unit commanders to a briefing and outlined the new positions we were moving into. He told me to pack up my mortar platoon, take along all our reserve ammunition, and dig into the reverse slope of Hill 210. My mortar platoon and all 4 companies of the Vandus were to protect against a predicted Chinese attack on the west slope of American-occupied Little Gibraltar. Colonel Dexter positioned the regiment on a saddle of slopes east of 355 in the pattern of a fist, with D Company as finger stretching out into no man's land, with the Americans on their right and the Chinese on their left. JDEX, as Colonel Dexter was known, issued one simple order to his men: no withdrawal, no platoons overrun, and no panic.
The first Chinese assault started with a deafening barrage of artillery shells. 3 Chinese columns began advancing toward the Van Du's position, but their real target was Hill 355. Within an hour, 2 of the U.S. 7th Infantry Regiment companies were shortening their defense lines, and a third was overrun. At 5:30, 2 hours after the assault began, an American voice came over the wireless at Van Du Battalion headquarters shouting,
"Collapse! This is collapse! Over!"
The 7th Infantry Regiment retreated when the Chinese occupied Hill 355. Permanent loss of the height meant loss of control of roads running through the American sector for miles in every direction. The Van Dus, virtually surrounded, were still at their posts. Colonel Dexter had 2 choices. He could follow the Americans in a retreat to safety, jeopardizing all gains made north of the Imjin River in the last 3 months, or he could hold his positions and fight. Colonel Dexter addressed the entire Royal 22nd Battalion over the wireless radio.
We're being attacked by a major Chinese force. We will hold our positions. We will fight to the end.
Soon shells were falling on Dog Company like confetti at a wedding. A count of 330 every 2 minutes, 9,000 an hour.
By dark, the Chinese infantry were everywhere. The Canadians, rather than fire their rifles and machine guns, which would have revealed their positions, replied with a rain of grenades. D Company's No. 10 platoon alone threw 40 cases of grenades into attacking waves of Chinese infantry.
By the morning of the 24th, the battlefield had fallen silent and a cavalcade of jeeps arrived loaded with brass. The leader of the group, the U.S. Corps Commander, General Iron Mike O'Daniel, ordered his infantry commander to retake the heights by 2 o'clock that afternoon. The murderous battle atop 355 soon spread to the adjoining saddle of land held by 3 forward platoons of the Royal 22nd, and soon they were again being pulverized by Chinese artillery. By 6 p.m., the Chinese infantry attack began. They came like buffaloes over a bridge in 3 waves. There was no stopping them. The attack surrounded No. 11 platoon so quickly that the Chinese broke through the barbed wire and overran the position. 90 seconds after the call for support went out, the first Canadian tank round hit into Chinese attackers, and the barrage from the Lord Strathcona tanks that followed was devastating. By 1 a.m., advancing behind a curtain of mortar fire, the platoon's position was retaken.
By 2:30 Sunday morning, it was over. The 3 original platoons of D Company had held firm for 4 days and 4 nights of continual fighting, without food, water, or sleep. The Van Du Battalion suffered 54 casualties in the battle, 16 killed, 36 wounded, and 2 taken prisoner. Their resolve turned the tide of the battle, and the Americans were able to recapture and hold Little Gibraltar. No withdrawal, no platoons overrun, no panic. 2 days after the Van Du's heroic defense, peace delegates gathered again in Panmunjom, and the 2 sides agreed on a line of contact, or potential truce line, for the first time. A year later, as peace talks ground on endlessly in Panmunjom, 20 miles to the west, the communist desire for Little Gibraltar manifested itself once again. Still expecting that the war might resume at some future date, the Chinese were concerned to secure all the best positions. The Royal Canadian Regiment had taken over the position from the Americans.
In October of 1952, the RCRs and Little Gibraltar came together when we took over the positions on the hill. About the middle of the month, artillery fire, which had been constant, increased. And by the 24th of October, Chinese soldiers were all over us. We clung to our crumbling positions. I was wounded in my right forearm and both legs. A